Hello and welcome to this tutorial video. I am Adrian and today I'm going to be teaching you the basics of crochet. I've been crocheting for over 15 years, much of it self-taught, and with my online knitting friends kind of exploring crochet seriously for the first time, I figured it might be a good idea to kind of teach what I know. Some of you might find this helpful if you're doing crochet for the first time. So in this video, I will be going over tools that you can use, the types of stitches, both how to read them and how to make them, how to crochet flat rows and where to find the end of your row, and also how to crochet in the round with a basic granny square. So the first thing you'll need if you're going to follow along with me are some tools. This is your primary tool. This is a basic crochet hook. This particular one from Boy has the size written on it. It's a US H8 5mm hook. In the US, we typically label them with letters. There are also numbers because there are numbers between the letters. But if your hook does not say what size it is on it, you can use a regular needle gauge to gauge the size of the hook. This is a hook that I like to use for worsted weight yarn, but your gauge will vary the same way it does with knitting. You will also need some yarn. I will be doing these demonstrations with this worsted weight, brightly colored acrylic yarn. You can use whatever yarn you have. Same with knitting. There are some types of yarn that are spun specifically for crochet, but any yarn, any string, any thread will do. Just as a point of reference, this is acrylic yarn. Because it comes in a very bright color that I can use to show you stitches very clearly. You will also need a pair of scissors, like any other fiber craft. For some of these tutorials, you will need a tapestry needle. Weaving in the ends will be a separate video coming up soon. And it might also be helpful to have some stitch markers on hand. Now for crochet, you can't use traditional ringed stitch markers because if you do, then it will be trapped in your work forever. So what we typically use for crochet are things like these interlocking stitch markers or these other interlocking stitch markers. You can use these little bulb safety pin ones. If you have a progress keeper with a big enough lobster claw, you can use that. Or you can use something like these open stitch markers. I personally like using these if it's going to be a shorter term project, if I'm not going to be putting it down a lot, or if the rows or rounds are relatively short, because you can just scoop them in, scoop them back out. But if I'm going to be working on a bigger project where the stitch marker is going to need to stay in there for a lot longer, I will use the locking ones so that they don't fall out. There are several different basic crochet stitches, which I know can be a little bit confusing if you're coming to this for the first time from knitting, where everything is basically a knit stitch or a purl stitch. Crochet stitches are basically created by stacking loops on top of each other. So your different crochet stitches are the same width, but will be a different height based on how many loops you stack. So here is a chain stitch. This is the basis for all crochet patterns. You will never avoid using a chain stitch entirely. You can see here that it looks similar to knitting if it's vertical. You have these V legs. This is considered the right side of the stitch. This is considered the wrong side of the stitch. You can see these almost like purl bumps along the top. Typically, you're going to work with your chain while it's horizontal, unless you're at the end of a row, in which case you might be working with it vertically, but I will show you that later on. The next stitch up in height is a slip stitch. That's not a very tall stitch. A slip stitch is basically a chain stitch that's attached to another stitch. This is 4 rows of slip stitches. You can see it's not very tall at all. You can't see the separation between the rows very well. This is often used as a connecting stitch if you're going in the round, or if you're crocheting flat. It can be a way to basically scoot your working yarn across some stitches without putting any stitches in height in your work. This is the single crochet stitch. Well, it would be if I put it the right side up. This is a single crochet stitch. You can see there's some height on these stitches now. This is 6 rows. If we bring it up close, you can recognize a single crochet because it's primarily these little legs with 1 loop going across, and that's the top of the stitch. So if we look at it up here, see these 2 vertical legs, a loop, and the top of the stitch. When you're looking at crochet, the top of the stitch will look like a chain. And I will show you how to know where to put your stitches a little bit later on. So these are the single crochet. These are the next step up. These are a half double crochet. You can see this is 6 rows again. It's taller than a single crochet. A half double has your 2 little vertical legs, 2 loops, and then the top of the stitch. So if we bring that up close, two vertical legs, 2 loops, and there's the top of the stitch right in there. And like the singles, the top will look like a chain stitch. These are double crochets, which you'll be very familiar with if you've been looking at those granny stripe blankets. The double crochet stitch is the primary stitch of those blankets. You can see it's considerably taller than the single crochet and the half double crochet. This is also 6 rows. The double crochet stitch has a little bit more space between them. And it basically has 2 levels to it. So you have the start of your stitch with these legs, some loops that divide it in half, and then the second half of the stitch.